Well, Olivia, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I am so thrilled that you're here. Let's just be frank and say I've never had an editor in chief of a magazine here on the podcast. So I'm thrilled that you're here with us. However, before we continue and dive into all the good stuff, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself and tell the audience exactly who you are?
Yeah, hi, Henriette. Thank you very much for inviting me on your podcast. I'm delighted to be here and look forward to our little chat. So, yes, there's always a first time for everything. So my sort of background really is I only just recently became an editor in chief of a magazine. This was a project I started during lockdown. Prior to that, I've been a professional photographer for the last 20 years. I worked as a corporate event photographer for many years, working for some big brands, traveled the world, did 10 years in sort of high-end weddings as well. But then lockdown happened, COVID happened, and that became an opportunity for me to examine sort of my life and where I wanted to go. And I knew I wanted to try something new and pivot my business into a new venture. And that's where the idea of the magazine came along back in October last year. So that's kind of how it got started, through a creative idea. I had an idea in my mind and I thought, just put it down on paper, Olivia. And the first issue of Brand New was born in October last year.
Yeah. And I love your story. And I think, you know what, it rings true for so many people when they hear the story, because let's face it, when COVID hit, a lot of people had to pivot. A lot of people had to change, do new things, start new businesses. And I think this is one of the most beautiful things actually that came from what has happened, is to kind of actually look at the transformations and the things that we have gone through as individuals, not just growing ourselves, but growing into different aspects, growing into other businesses and take our creativity in a different zone. I mean, you never would have thought that you would have started your own magazine. And I mean, look at, 12 months on, look how amazing it is. And I mean, I've seen the magazine, everybody talks about it, it's everywhere. And I've seen and heard the growth that you've experienced throughout this time. So tell us a little bit about where the magazine is today and what that kind of last year has, that growth of the last year, where it took you to where you are today.
Sure. I created the magazine because maybe 2 years ago, I started networking quite a lot. Through my photography business, I was also doing personal brand photography. So I was meeting lots of small business owners sort of locally and doing their photo shoot. And through chatting to all these amazing people, I realized that there were so many amazing stories, successful stories, and so many knowledge to be shared, that I felt I needed to create a space where I could gather all of that information. And I've always been a very creative person. So anything to do with design, creativity has always been sort of in my world. And I, at the time, didn't really want to create anything that was, again, online, because there were so many already different platforms, different online magazines and stuff. So I really wanted to go back to the traditional look and feel of a magazine. I also believed that there was nothing out there available that really catered for small business owner, that really touched on the issues that they are going through every day, the struggles, the highs, the lows of running their own business. So I wanted to create a publication that really spoke to them in a language that they would understand, but with information that they could really relate to. Yeah. So that was the original concept behind Brand New magazine. When I first created it, because of the name Brand New magazine, it was a magazine that was meant to sort of focus on personal brand. Then I sort of realized that personal brand itself might just be a bit limiting in sort of content going forward with the magazine. So I slowly introduced the lifestyle, the business section, and then the lifestyle section. So now we have three distinctive sort of section in the magazine. But it's progressed a huge amount in just 12 months. When I launched it, it wasn't meant to be a magazine for women. It was meant to be for men and women, just small business owners. But I find that was quite limiting creatively, because I had to cater for both a male audience and a female audience. And that was quite difficult to always find that sort of that middle ground. And then as the month progressed, I started looking really at the stats of who was interacting with my magazine, who was downloading. At the time, it was a free online magazine. And once I realized that 99.99% of the women interacting, the people interacting with the magazine were women, I then had sort of my first change of direction with the magazine and decided to focus really on a magazine for women. And then that offered a massive liberation creativity. I was able to then really niche the magazine. I was able to find the right voice for it and to design it with a female audience in mind. So that was quite liberating. So that was first sort of important moment of the change of the creation of the magazine. And then from there, I decided to give myself a few months to be very clear in my mind as to what I wanted to create with the magazine, what was the aim and who am I targeting was the audience. And I wanted to bring the magazine to a standard on the design perspective that was ready for print, because I always wanted to take my magazine to print. Yeah. So I gave myself about 6 months of this sort of discovery journey until I felt the magazine was ready to go into a print publication, which we launched in May this year, the first sort of print subscription. So It's been a really lovely journey of self-discovery, design discovery, content discovery, and to get it up to scratch for our first print issues.
Yeah. And I love what you're sharing as well, because, you know, yes, it is a magazine for small business owners. And I've seen the magazine. I love the content in it. I mean, I've learned just from one issue, I've learned so much just going through the magazine. And it was really amazing just to go through it and say, oh my gosh, you know, look at these other women in here who are sharing their stories as well. And oh my gosh, I'm struggling with what they're struggling with and what did they do? So it's almost like kind of like a little bundle of information that you can use for your business as well by just sharing and seeing what these other women are doing. And it's just such amazing content. And you're so right. The creativity you put behind it is amazing. I've seen a lot of magazines and we all have seen so many magazines, but this one, you can see there's a lot of effort in the design behind it. So it makes it a lot more appealing. And at the same time, it makes you feel like, yeah, this is me. This is something that rings true to me. You know, I like this. And I think especially for those people out there who are also creative people who like having a physical item in their hands that they feel connected with through the creativity, but also through the content. So yes, so I think Brand New Magazine is amazing. And I'm so glad you started it. And I can just see this is going very, very far in the future for you. So I want to dive in a little bit into the content of starting a magazine, so to speak. You know, I think one of the things that people are always saying is starting a project, starting a business is very hard because nobody's got an idea of how to start it, but they've got this idea. So from your point of view, you already explained how the magazine got started, but there's a lot more planning and organization that's got to go into this. So what did that look like for you when you started the business?
Like you said, when we first start, you know, not everything is clear in the mind as to where you're going to take. And I don't come from a publishing background, so I am learning as I go along. And that also is learning what kind of content I will need to make this magazine of value to my readers, you know. So the discovery, the journey is each month is finding out a little bit more, about my audience. What are they struggling with? What do they want to hear about? What's the main topics and conversation or struggles, and then try to sort of gather all that information. And one of the first things is to understand the audience. And that takes a little bit of time when you're a new business. You have an idea of who your ideal audience is in your mind, but you might find that actually it's another type of people that might be interested. So I think the first few months, like I said, was the discovery of who's interested in this magazine to begin with. From there is understanding what are the overall struggles that small business owners are going through. And I also base a lot of that on myself. I'm a small business owner. So I often ask myself, what am I struggling with? Because if I'm struggling with marketing or PR or social media or anything else, then maybe other small businesses are struggling with the same thing. So I often base myself on what would I want to read. And then, so what I've decided to do with the magazine as well is to have a specific theme per issue.
Yeah.
And that allows me to then be able to go and find the contributors that can contribute with an article that would fit in and around that theme. And it's, on one hand, it makes it easier, on another, it might make it a little bit more complicated, but it's easier because then the whole magazine, having a general theme, allows all the contributors to be interlinked in some ways. And they're not just, it's not a magazine with lots of articles that just don't really fit. It also creates a sense of community. All these contributors are all feeling very connected with that particular issue because of the theme. So we've had some interesting themes like productivity, digital, community. What else we've had? We've had uniqueness as well. So, and I'm working at the moment, I've just launched the November issue, which is all about spirituality. So by giving the magazines these themes, then I can then start planning the content of my magazine. And find the relevant contributor. So that involves a lot of research. I could just be Googling, trying to find experts on Google. It's also through networking. So I obviously meet a lot of amazing women through network, and I invite them to contribute if they fit in with the theme. Word of mouth. I get a lot of people suggesting other people to me, you should contact this person, or this person will be good for your magazine. So, and then what I try to do is within each section is to try to offer different style of articles. So in the business section, for example, we've got one of the key articles is what I call the biz inspiration articles. So this is where I invite an expert to come and talk to us on sort of the bigger picture of things, the thought leadership kind of article that we start as a Q&A, and then this is then transformed into a editorial piece. We've got another article, which is a business interview. So this is where we really delve into the business of that expert, and it's a Q&A style of article. So again, offering a very different style of reading. Then we've got maybe 3 to 4 more educational pieces. So we invite experts to come in to educate us. So the idea is that once you read the whole magazine, you come out feeling inspired, motivated, but you've learned things. It's educational as well.
Yes.
So by trying to find different styles of article, I'm offering also the readers a much nicer experience in different styles of article. And
yeah. Now, I love what you're saying, because, you know, in so many ways, what you are describing, this planning and organization that you've got to go through, let's face it, that happens in business. We've all got to sit down and think about the planning. And, you know, even as a business coach, when I say, you so beautifully said it, every month, every issue has got a theme. And you'd be very surprised, but even as a business coach with what I'm doing, I've got a theme going every month. Nobody knows about this. Now you know. I've got a theme going every month, because especially when it comes to creating content, and let's face it, you are creating content here for your magazine. When it comes to creating content, it helps so much to think about a theme or a category and then break it down into subcategories, just like you do with inside the magazine. And then from there, it's so much easier to go and do the research and get that content. But so many people kind of use the idea of getting content, whether it's for a magazine, whether it's for blog posts, whether it's for podcasts. They think that it is the hardest thing to do, because now they've got to go sit and create the content. And I love what you're doing is you are finding contributors. You're not creating the content from scratch. You're creating the platform, which is the magazine. And then with the themes, you go and find contributors who can then bring the content to the magazine. And I think this is what is so powerful. And if we really put that into context as a strategy, that's what really gets businesses ticked, because this is what I do with the podcast. I'm using the same principle. I've got certain themes. I bring contributors, i.e. people who wants to get interviewed, onto the podcast. They bring the content, and I'm using the podcast as a platform to share that content with the audience. So basically, the tip that I want to share here with you guys listening or watching this video is, when it comes to planning and organizing your business, it's about thinking what and how you can use your business as a platform in order to distribute content. Because as we know, content is so, so valuable. And this is why I love having this conversation with Olivia, because the same principle applies even when you're running a magazine. Getting that content is all about planning, putting themes in place, subcategories, and then finding the contributors to help you in that. So take this as a lesson, okay? You can so easily use this as a strategy in your own business. Oh my gosh, Olivia, okay. The other thing that I wanted to ask you is obviously the editorial process. So, when it comes to the editing, when it comes to doing all of that work behind the scenes, so many people go like, yes, editorial. I think some people don't even know what the editorial process means and what it actually entails. But from your perspective, what is it that you do in Brand You? What is your process going through that editing part?
Okay, so something that's a little bit special about the Brand You magazine is it's not a magazine that is written by journalists, which that has a very different tonation. So the magazine is written by real women for women. So the style of writing is very different from each different article. We've been lucky so far that all our contributors have been great writers. So we don't tend to really amend a lot of their text. We want it to still sound like it comes from them. It's their own language, and it's their own choice of words. But what we do is I have a process. So I've obviously got an editorial team working for me, thank God, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do it all. So the process, what happened is I decide on the theme. I then talk with my editor, and we start to brainstorm ideas of what content we could bring to this particular theme. Then my role is then to contact and to meet all the contributors. We have Zoom calls, I brief them, and I very much let them choose what they would want to write about. I'm just there to guide them, thinking, oh, I'd like to bring this subject, but you're the expert and you need to write it in your own words. I'm not there to tell you how to write your article, but I will guide them on the word count. A lot of the articles are, especially the educational one, I like to have sort of smaller bite-sized information with lots of hints and tips. So 6 ways that you can improve this, or 5 ways that you can do this. So I guide my contributor as to how to write the overall structure of their article. But then after that, they go and do all the hard work. They send it back to me. I have a first read to make sure that it sounds okay. Then I literally pass it on to my editorial team. The editor will look at it. We're going to have a look if, for example, if it's missing an intro or an outro, if it's gone way over the word count, we might reduce it so we can fit it within the page spread. And then we then work with a creative writer and a proofreader. So the main biz inspirational article, for example, this is it starts off as a Q&A. So me and my editor it's complicated. I will have a Zoom with a contributor, which I will record. So it's almost like having an interview, but and I want them to generally talk to me about the subject. So I get a good feel, because I'm not an expert in all of the subjects that these contributors are expert at. So I record it. I get a good sense of what their business is. Then I will work with my editor, will come up with the Q&A, send it back to the contributor, they answer, it comes back to me, and then it goes to my creative writer and she turns it into an editorial piece. For the educational article, it comes back, it goes to my editor, and then it just gets proofread and shortened if need be. And then all the content then comes back to me ready for design. And then I go off and design the layout. And then it goes back to my contributors. They give me the final approval before we go to print. Because the design process for me is as important as the words. So we have got a chain of of event before it comes back to me to be designed.
No, it's fascinating to hear it, because as people who buy magazines, like we all are, You buy a magazine, you go, oh, great content, you read through it and you like the magazine, but we don't always think about the processes that happens behind the scenes of, you know, the backwards and forwards and making sure everything is right. And then the creative element, which is another thing all by itself, but bringing that all together to create just one issue. And then the following month, that's another process. It's the same thing. It's just a rinse and repeat. But oh my gosh, you do that every single month.
You have to work on almost 3 issues minimum at a time.
I just wanted to say, because you can't work on one issue at a time. Otherwise, you'll just be on the back foot the whole time. It's fascinating. Yeah, no, honestly, I didn't know all of that. So talk to us about the subscribers, the fans, you know, the ambassadors, all those kind of people then who you would like to target with the magazine. So talk to us a little bit about those kind of people and how do you go about knowing where your subscribers are?
Yeah. So I think everybody can relate that when you launch a new business, you tend to sort of launch it with your network within your own network. So the network that I had was obviously quite small to begin with. So I do a lot of social media. I mean, obviously lots of social media, email marketing, and so on. But when I launched the business, I only had my local network to launch it to. So like I said, the first 6 months when I was sort of discovering who the audience was and niching down to them, now I've got a clear idea of who the reader is. So it's women 35 to 55. There can be plus, but that's generally the main age frame. They're all obviously small business owners. It could be small boutiques, freelancers. When I first launched the magazine, I thought I would attract a lot of startups, but in fact, they're not startups. So that also made me change a lot of the content to know that I'm not talking to pure startups. I'm talking to people who've been in business at least 2-3 years, even up to 10 years. But they're women who seem to always want to learn and also know that they don't know everything. So they always are keen to learn new things. They're also women I feel are very much in tune with the whole women empowering women and the sense of community, and who feel like this magazine is really talking to them. So it's like shining a light on them, even if they're not in the magazine, it's talking to people like them. So they like that sense of community. Yeah. And that's something that I want going forward with the brand, is to start building a stronger sense of community. They seem to be creative, but they come from all sorts of different types of business. We've got fine art artists, we've got lots of designers, fashion designers, we've got lots of people in marketing, in social media, loads of consultants, business coaches. A lot of them are moms, obviously working from home as well. But yeah, I think they're all in a good place in their business. They just want to keep going, keep learning. So that's how I've niched the audience. That's who I think I'm talking to.
Yeah. No, what really stands out is when I asked you that question, you nailed it perfectly. You knew exactly who your subscribers are for your business, who those fans are, who are the people who's buying the magazine, who are intrigued by it, who feels that they can learn from it. So you absolutely nailed it spot on. And I think this is something that I want to share with the audience as well is, you know, doesn't matter what business you're in, but if you can understand exactly who your audience is, who are those people that you want to connect and work with, oh my gosh, everything else just starts falling in place, and you'll start seeing things making a lot more sense. You get more clarity about the direction you're heading into with your business. And I know a lot of people say you've got to figure out who your ideal client avatar is, but there's a reason why everybody's saying you need to do that, because it's going to help you with clarity. So Olivia has done perfectly well with that. She knows exactly who her subscribers are, who the audience is that's following the magazine, who loves the magazine. And that just gave her the clarity in order to get the content and create the right content, or bring the right content and the right contributors, and then provide that in the form of the magazine. So, you know, the reason why Olivia's here is not just to share her story, but it's also for you to see in different aspects of business, the principles are exactly the same. And this is why I just love bringing women on the podcast. No matter what their industry, no matter what their niche, the principles are exactly the same. So if you've heard me say this before, you're going to hear me say it a few more times in the future, okay? Olivia, I honestly, I just love having this conversation with you. But I think another question I have for you is, business isn't always simple. Yes, it could be, but we do have some difficulties. We do have some things that we hit against a wall and we go like, oh gosh, what do we do? So from your point of view, do you have a couple of tips on how to overcome some of these difficulties? I mean, even from your experience, I'm sure you've had some difficulties that you had to overcome.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always difficulties, and there will always be difficulties to overcome. I think one of the first hurdle is when you're launching a business on a budget or with no budget. That can be a big hurdle when you've got a dream, you've got something that you want to create and do, but you don't have the budget. Creating a magazine on no budget, a lot of people in the industry might even say that that's a little bit crazy, but there's always ways to get over that and jump over the hurdle. But for me, my biggest hurdle was, okay, how do I launch a magazine when I have no budget? You got to understand that my sort of career had stopped because my photography business had stopped. So I had no income during COVID coming through the photography business. So that left a big hole in the purse. And so I launching a business with no money and just internet and a few softwares. But there are ways to do it. And I think, you know, if I could have, my dream would be to have, you know, 50 grand worth of budget so I can put into marketing and advertising so I could speed up the process. But that's not going to happen. So my intake on that is, I'm not here to create a 5-minute wonder business. I'm here to create a long-term business that will, you know, in 20 years time become my legacy. So what I want to do is to create strong foundations, take it at the rhythm that it needs to take. I'm not in a big hurry. I have my 2 years, 5-year sort of plan of where I would like to take the business. And if there's no budget for me to move any faster, then work around it. So use social media, use email marketing, network, word of mouth. There's lots of other ways that you can spread awareness of your brand without having to spend millions on advertising. But I guess that would be the biggest hurdle for a lot of startups, is the lack of budget and feeling like you're not moving fast enough. But patience for me is number one key.
I agree with you.
To creating something that is going to be long lasting and not a 5-minute wonder.
And those are powerful words, because so many of us, let's face it, we live in a world where everything happens at a touch of a button. Okay. So we've been conditioned that when we do something, we're going to get the results back instantaneously. But it doesn't happen like that in real life or in business. You know, everything is organic. You have to be patient. And I think patience is one of the things that, as they say, is a virtue, but we don't all have it. And I think what you're saying is powerful, because yes, you had an idea in mind. You said, this is not going to be a 5-minute thing. This is going to be a long-term business where you want to leave a legacy. So having the patience and let it flow and let it grow organically, you're open-minded to that. And I think a lot of people starting a business or who are already in business feel that things need to happen quicker. Things need to happen faster. I need to grow my business quicker. I need to sign up more clients, which is great. We all want that. But you got to have patience and know that things are taking its time. Now, I'm not saying taking its time by you not doing anything. You still got to be active. You still got to put the actions out there in order to have the returns. But you got to have the patience. That is one of the most important things I think we need to adjust to, and we need to take control of as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it depends on what kind of business you are as well. I mean, there's some business, you know, can make a lot of money very, very quickly, and some other business might need a bit more time. I think having a good vision of where you want to take your business is really helpful, but also give yourself that time at the beginning to make errors, because that's how you're going to learn that, okay, well, that might not have worked. We might need to change and find another strategy. And it's all about that learning curve. I think the first few years in business is all about learning what is right for you, for your business, for your product, for your clients, and then adjust. So And then there's plenty of free tools out there that you can help. Obviously, softwares, there's lots of free softwares that we can use to help us within our business, but not to be scared that to launch or to follow your dream if you don't have a budget behind it. Just take it at your own pace, but go for it.
Yeah, exactly. What other difficulties have you come across then when you started the magazine?
So one of the main difficulties for me, unfortunately, one of my main difficulties is social media, bizarrely. Not difficulties, but I don't understand social media or anything like that. It's difficulties of finding time to properly structure my social media. So I tend to still be a little bit action reaction. But that's because I'm lacking time. And if I'm lacking time, it's because all my energy and are into sort of already occupied. So one of the biggest hurdle, and I'm looking at the Kickstarter theme to try and maybe get a youngster to come in and maybe take over that little social media just to try and create a proper strategy and not be action reaction, but to plan it thoughtfully. So I think my biggest hurdle, yes, is finding time to structure the social media. I've been very much into the magazine, the creation of the magazine, and that it's lack of time. And
I'm sure she said that a lot of women sat here and go like, yep, me too, exactly. But I like the fact that you're already thinking of the bigger picture and you're already thinking ahead and thinking, hey, if I can get an intern in, if I can get a VA, if I can get somebody to help me, I can just hand that over to them and I can get them to do it. And you know, this is one of the things that I want to share with people, because you can only be a solo entrepreneur for so long, okay? In the beginning stage of your business, yes, you're going to want to do everything. Yes, you're going to want to learn. You're going to want to make the mistakes, and there will be some of them, trust me, but you're going to learn from those, okay? I always talk about it's not mistakes, it's lessons. So you're going to learn through this process, but there's going to come a point, just like Olivia said, where she's going to go, you know what? My concentration is just fully on the magazine. I need to outsource. I need to get somebody to help me with all of these other things, i.e. social media. So if you're at a point in your business where you're thinking, yeah, this is a difficulty for me as well, start outsourcing, find a VA, find somebody who can help you do all of those things that you're struggling with. And yeah, we always do things that we don't like, but we feel we have to do them, instead of using the time that we have, because we only all have 24/7 hours, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Let me correct that. Not 247 hours. So we all have the same amount of time. And why would you want to spend that time doing something that you don't enjoy, rather than giving that to somebody who actually enjoys doing it? Because we're all different, right? So no, I love that you share that, and I love to the fact that you're sharing it with the audience and say, hey, just a human being, I'm still struggling with that as well, because I think we all are. Yeah, we all are.
But I think we do have at the beginning have to do all these things, because we have to know and understand our business inside out. So by doing all the admin and all the social media and every single aspect, to begin with, is a great way to learn what's going to work, what's not going to work. But at some point, yes, you've got to delegate. And by having done all this stuff, you kind of understand what your business needs in terms of processes and so on. So then you can go and delegate, knowing what's expected and what these guys need to do to help your business. But you have to go through a few years at least of doing everything to understand, the core of your business and what it means.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, a lot of people actually say that those first year, 2 years, depending on the business, I've had this conversation where so many women get so excited when they're in the startup of their business. I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to run this baby. And they're going to sign up for this business, and this thing is going to run, and it's going to help them with their financial freedom, etc., which we all want. And we all know that happens. But what they don't teach us in life is that when you sign up to have a business, actually what you're really signing up is a lot of self-development. So, you know, you can only go through those first 2 years learning more about yourself, and you have to go through this process, just like Olivia said. You learn more about yourself, you learn more about what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And then with what you learn about yourself, you start implementing it into the business. And then with that, you obviously learn what works for the business, what's aligned with you, what's not aligned with you. And that's only where you can start growing. That's only where you can start developing your business. But you have to think about the fact that you're investing in yourself. That self-growth, that self-development, you got to go through it, because nothing else is going to develop if you don't go through it in the first stage. And yes, try everything out, try and be everywhere if you want to be everywhere. But what I always say is there's got to come a point where you say, enough is enough. I've tried all of these things. What is actually aligned with me? What is it that I enjoy doing? And the other stuff I don't enjoy, but I feel they are important for my business. Now that you've discovered what they are, hand them over to somebody else. So there will come a point like that, but you've got to realize that you can only be a solo entrepreneur for so long. You're going to need help eventually.
Yep, agreed.
Oh my gosh, Olivia, I just love having this conversation, and I love hearing how you work with Brand New Magazine. It's fascinating. I mean, you talk about things that I've never even thought of, that I haven't heard of. And like I say, we just buy the magazine, but we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And I love that you sharing the process, because it just shows that it doesn't matter what business, what niche you're in, the principles are exactly the same. We just got to stop overcomplicating things for ourselves and just looking at it in a simplistic way. Before we go, though, you've got an amazing offer for the audience, and you are giving a discount to your magazine. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, it's a great pleasure. So if any of your listeners want to subscribe to the magazine, all they need to do is get on my website, subscribe to either the print or the digital, and they use the code ESP at checkout, and they get a wonderful little discount, where this is mainly for the print issue, where they get the first 3 months at £9 instead of £11. And then after the 3 months, it will roll back to £11. So if they want to subscribe and use the discount code ESP, they can do that at checkout. But yeah, great pleasure. Come and check out.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much. So the discount code is ESP. Obviously, Olivia and I spoke about this because we wanted to make sure that it's something that resonates with the podcast. And the ESP stands for the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. So you can remember it if you think about the abbreviations. So ESP, Entrepreneurial Success Podcast, use that at the checkout, and you can get the first 3 issues at £9. And then after that, it will jump back to the standard £11 a month. Oh my gosh. Honestly, Olivia, that is such a great offer. And I think for everybody listening, getting excited about the magazine, they can go and have a look at your website. So we are going to have Olivia's website for Brand New Magazine below in my show notes. We are also going to have her LinkedIn details there and her Instagram, so you can go and stalk her, check her out, see what she's saying about the magazine. You're going to have a little bit of a snippet there and a preview. And then please feel free to go use the discount voucher or the code ESP and go and sign up and get your first 3 months at a discounted rate. Olivia, thank you so, so much for being here. Are there any last tips you want to share with the audience before we go?
Oh, tips. I've just been working on the November issue, which is all about spirituality, and I've learned so much from this issue. So I would just say, follow your intuition and stay aware of what you are from within, and stay true to yourself. But just follow your dreams.
Beautifully said. Thank you so, so much. And thank you so much for being here with us and sharing all your wisdom and knowledge. And you know what? I wish you all of the success for the magazine. I just know it's going to be a profound magazine. And I hope everybody here is going to subscribe and also have a look at it, because I know they will get great value from it, just as we do. Thank you so much. And I will be in touch with you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Henry. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.